Electricast. Welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, self-care coach for women who are ready to make self-care a priority to support them in life and business. Every week, I'll be speaking with inspiring women from various walks of life who will share their personal journeys and will discover how they have fearlessly carved their own paths as business owners, passionately pursuing their dreams and creating a meaningful impact on their communities. So let's get started. Hello, and welcome to our Extraordinary Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, and today we're talking with Jodie Solberg. Jodie is a certified master hypnotherapist, transpersonal wellness coach, transformational speaker, and international best-selling author holding a doctorate in counseling. With over 2 decades of experience as both a therapist and coach and an educational background in both social and clinical psychology, Jodie founded Psyched Up Success in 2019 to integrate her expertise and support clients of all ages and stages in their healing journey. Her work focuses on helping her clients heal from trauma and anxiety, embrace neurodiversity, remove mental blocks to success, gain clarity and confidence, creating inner peace and work-life harmony, preventing burnout, and achieving their personal and professional goals while prioritizing self-care and self-compassion. Jodie, I'm excited that you said yes to being on the podcast, so welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Leslie. I'm so happy to be here today.
Well, I am happy that you're here as well. So we've known each other for quite some time now. We're in similar spaces where we help our clients around achieving that inner peace, that work-life balance. And I know a lot of people push back on that, but I truly believe there is such a thing. And also preventing burnout. When we first talked about the podcast, I wanted to have you come on for this important series in December around empowerment through the holidays, as I know that even though it can be an exciting and wonderful time, that for others, it can actually be an incredibly difficult time period, maybe due to a lot of factors. And so I created this series and I asked guests like yourself to come onto the show to pour into our audience to empower them as they navigate this holiday season. So with that being said, I'd love to dive right into what you do. I think you've had such an incredible journey of what you're doing. What inspired you to create Psyched Up Success back in 2019 and create this integrated approach to healing and personal growth? And how has your diverse background shaped the way you work with your clients?
Oh, that's such a great question, Leslie. Yeah, it has been a long journey. Absolutely. As you said, I've been in mental and behavioral health for 25 years. I've also been coaching for 23 of those years. I actually started coaching and consulting with women entrepreneurs back when I was in grad school for clinical psychology. And I really kept both of those two career tracks separate for many, many years. I'd started a business so I could pay off all those 6 figures in student loans and did that and kept going and just really enjoyed it. It was my happy place. I loved working with women who were just like us, like busy women in business, trying to, like you said, balance all of the things. We're not just a business in a bubble. We're individuals, but we also have families. We have full lives. We have our own health and well-being. And we have a lot of things in common where we are trying to do all the things and take care of everyone and everything else, and often can put ourselves on the back burner. And so that's basically what ended up happening to me as well over time. I'd have these little burnout episodes, I'll call them, and I'd recognize it and I'd realize it and I'd say, okay, I need to make a change. I need to rest and I need to recover. And then I'd go right back to my old ways, as we often do. And I was on the therapy side for many years working with a lot of court appointed clients. So people dealing with abuse and addiction, individuals, families, kids, all different ages. And so that was a pretty heavy load, right? Just energetically, emotionally, physically. I was spreading myself pretty thin because, again, I love doing both, but it was also a lot. And it got to the point where a couple things happened. I realized that it wasn't as sustainable for me. I had some more life things happen where I needed to, take some more time and energy for my own health as well as for my family. And I also noticed that, again, the women I was working with in the coaching arena, they were whole people and they were having a lot of frustration, a lot of upset, a lot of guilt for themselves around why can't I get myself to do the things I know I need to do from the coaching and that strategy side. I was working with, like I mentioned, a lot of people in business and they wanted to get to that next level, but they kept hitting all these blocks and barriers. And I would think, because I was a therapist, I would think and I'd look at them and say, I know how to help them, but I'm not their therapist right now. And I was kind of handcuffing myself in a way where I had this one role, but it needed to go deeper, right? They needed that deeper work. And I know you relate to that because you help people do also, right? Some deeper work. We have things that get in our way of trying to reach our goals because our goals and our planning and all the logic, that's all at our conscious level. And a lot of the blocks and barriers that we come up against are, things like limiting beliefs or past traumas or anxiety. And that's all on a much deeper level, more on the subconscious level. And so that's where Psyched Up Success was really born is I had some personal transitioning happening that I wanted to make some changes in how I was working and how I was taking care of myself because I needed to do that first. And so 2018 going into 2019, I was making this big transition and I wanted to put my two worlds together. And so that's really where Psyched Up Success was born. And I put the psychology in with that success. And to me, success is your own success. It's your definition of what that is in every area of your life. It's not just about money. It's not just about achievement or accolades. It's about how you live your life in more harmony with all the different parts and pieces of that, and that it's sustainable, that you're taking care of yourself first and foremost, so you can take care of all of the other things at your best. And the trajectory of how that all came to be, and it has been such a beautiful merge, a marrying of all of my gifts and talents and strengths and my passions all in one.
I love that. And I love the fact that you were honest about burnout because yes, I'm a self-care strategist. I help people around this, but I also know what it's like to fall back into our old patterns because you think, oh, I'm good now. And then
Mhm.
life gets in, starts happening. And especially when you're serving other people, especially in this space, there can be times where you're like really pouring so much of yourself into others that for me, I really actually had my own experience around emotional burnout. And it's just realizing that the signs are there. We just have to learn to recognize them, not beat ourselves up if we manage to actually fall back into it. And then the other part is that most people don't even know they're headed for burnout because they're not looking at specifically that, oh, I'm headed for burnout. They're only looking at, oh, I just had an off day, or I'm just tired today because I didn't get much rest last night. Not looking at maybe some of the patterns that they're actually, contributing to that. So I love that. One of your areas of expertise is helping your clients heal from trauma and embrace neurodiversity. So, how do you support your clients in these areas? And what advice would you have or guidance would you have for individuals who may feel overwhelmed as they navigate their healing journey?
Yeah, it can definitely be overwhelming, like you're saying. And it's important to customize, I find, an approach because just because one person has been through trauma or has, let's say, ADHD, for example, no two people are alike, right? We all have our individual unique strengths and our personalities and our experiences. And even if somebody is standing right next to you and you're going through the same thing, you're going to respond differently to that. And so I find it's important to have a whole toolbox of different methods that I can pull from, which is really one of my strengths with all of the different experiences that I have had. So I can utilize hypnotherapy, for example, as a very gentle yet effective way to help people heal from trauma, where they're not having to re-traumatize and re-experience those things. And we can do that in a very calm, more relaxed way. I also can use some somatic regulation techniques. So I can help them through different somatic trauma release techniques, helping with breathing techniques, relaxation techniques, all sorts of different options depending on the person. And with all forms of neurodiversity and with all people, I think it's really important to help them to recognize their own strengths and to figure out how their brain works and how their minds and their bodies are connected. Because we're very disconnected typically in our society. And especially if you have experienced trauma, you may have disconnected as a coping strategy. So, really important to gently learn how to connect with ourselves and understand how we operate and how we work as individuals. So then we can work with our brains rather than against them or at cross purposes. And so that's something that's really important to me is to help my clients to learn who they are, how they work, what they like, what's important to them, what their values are so that then they can make decisions based on that. They can operate based on those things. Because so often we're full of guilt and shame and beating ourselves up for what we think are our weaknesses or what we think we can't do versus focusing on, well, what do we do well? What can we do? And how can we put systems in place to help us? And how can we regulate? Because often, especially with trauma and neurodivergence, which often can be commingled as well, we're so focused on what's lacking or the dysregulation that we don't know what we can do. We get so focused on where we have been that we stay in this cycle, we stay in a pattern. And it's hard to see outside. I always think of it as because we're going into the holiday season, like you said, think of it as being in your own little snow globe and there's a little blizzard in your snow globe and you're in the middle of it and it's hard to see out. And so having that outside perspective is really key because then somebody can say, hey, I can help you calm down the blizzard and help get you clarity and help you find those answers from within of what's going to work best for you as an individual. So that's really how I approach my work with people.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the things that I really liked is that you mentioned that someone could be standing beside you going through the same thing as you are and completely have a different perception of it or a different response. I've even heard it being said, and I've not really actually tested this by asking my own sibling, but that even in your household growing up, that you all can experience similar things and yet completely have different perspectives on an event or your experience in the home. So I think that's really fascinating to me to know that even going through something as a sibling growing up together, that you would look at an event or a situation completely different from the other. So I love that. Now,
Yeah.
you did mention the holiday season, of course. This
Mhm.
is for Empowerment Through the Holidays series. And I know that the holiday season can really bring a lot of stress and added responsibilities, making it challenging to set boundaries. And especially even if Christmas is your favorite time of year, it can probably still even be stressful, especially if you're the one hosting the dinners, or maybe you're hosting people from out of town, or maybe you're traveling to go somewhere to see family, or it could just be that you're just going, 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 and you're exhausted throughout the whole process. So, can you share your insights on how we can empower ourselves by creating and holding healthy boundaries over the holidays while still managing our energy amidst the busyness?
Yes. And I think the key there, you said two things boundaries and managing your energy. Energy management is just as important, if not more, than time management. And during the holiday season, like you said, there can be a lot of additional stress, even if it is a positive time for you. Because think about that. There's a lot of positive things like weddings, right? Getting married, for example. You may be thinking of that as the best day of your life. And it can still be really, really stressful because there's a lot of planning, there's a lot of resources, so time and energy and money and things that go into that. So it can definitely be a stressful time. And what you touched on with families, right? We can have very different perspectives. So think about this. If you stand on one side of the room that you're in right now and you take a picture, and then you walk to the other side of the room and you take a picture from that side of the room and you take a picture, it's going to look very different, right? It's going to look like two completely different rooms sometimes. And so, absolutely, that can cause some challenges within family dynamics, even because we all have our own lens, we all have our own perspective that we're seeing things from, and we can treat each other differently. And you can have very different experiences, and we're different people. And so, often, the family gatherings, while they can be very positive, can be challenging for a lot of people. There's a lot going on in the world, and people can have different perspectives on that. And so, like you said, setting those healthy boundaries is key. So, boundaries around your time and your energy. So, what you're saying yes or no to, maybe taking a moment to think about it versus just reacting and saying yes to all the things. That can be really helpful to think about, does this reflect what I want my holiday season to be? Do I have the time and energy to do this without burning myself out? So you can really pause and choose how to respond versus just immediately reacting and trying to do all the things for all the people. You can also look at maybe asking, like you said, if you're hosting, maybe you have tried it and this has happened to me. So I'll use this as a personal example. In the past, when I was hosting, I tried to do all the things by myself. And I wasn't having very much fun, to be honest. Right. And it
Mhm.
probably wasn't very fun to be around either because I was stressed out and I was like, get out, let me just do my thing and trying to do all the work. And it's so much more enjoyable and empowering for yourself and others if you actually ask them to contribute. You can delegate, you can ask people to help in the form of a contribution, right? They're contributing, they're working with you. It can be a bonding experience versus you just being grumpy until everything's done and then you're exhausted after. And then if you do have some challenging, let's say family dynamics, as I mentioned, you can set boundaries around topics for yourself, of interactions. You can think about, instead of just going through the motions in your mind, because we can mentally rehearse negatively a lot of the time of, well, my brother's going to say that. And this person's going to say this, and then I'm going to do this. And you can think about this going sideways, or you can think, okay, so if this comes up, how can I respond to that and maybe shift things in a more positive direction? Or how can I limit those conversations that might get a little tense? How can we focus on maybe gratitude, something a little bit different, shift the mindset, shift the conversations? So I feel like there's a lot that we can do without going into those old patterns that may be taking us in a direction we don't want to go by planning ahead and then hitting that pause button, choosing how to respond and make sure that that is aligned with what you want your holiday season to look like. So set some intentions for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that how you were framing the family dynamics too. I think as we get older, for whatever reason, I guess because we're going through life, when we're cocooned together growing up, it's different. But when we go out into the world and we start building our own lives outside of the family, then things just kind of hit different or land differently. And
Mhm.
so, what I think it'd be a great way of just kind of whether it's breaking the ice or whether it's kind of diffusing situations or maybe just taking it in a different direction is remembering some of the reminiscing about the fond memories that you had growing up. Because there's always going to be good times. Very rarely have I spoken with anyone who's really had just a negative upbringing entirely. I had a lot of trauma in my life, but I still have memories, fun memories that I can still pick out of all of the the madness, the chaos, and still find that there were fun times and be able to like reflect back on them. So I think that's important, which kind of leads me into my next question. You help your clients remove mental blocks to success and help them gain clarity and confidence. And I know that when I was saying like this will help me transition is the reason why I was saying that is because sometimes we tend to stay fixated on the negatives instead of trying to weed through and look for the positives. So, what are some of the most common mental blocks you see, and how can people begin to identify and overcome their own mental blocks in their personal and or professional lives?
Yeah, like you said, people can get really stuck in the negative, and part of it is how we're wired, and part of it is our society, honestly, is pretty negatively leaning. And so we're wired to always look for what's wrong, always look for the threats. And in our modern world, it's not always those physical threats, but it's things that make us uncomfortable or anything that's negative, things we don't like. Again, what's missing? What's wrong here? What do I perceive I can't do? And whatever we tell ourselves that I am, or things like, I can't do this, or I'm horrible at that, or whatever that may be in your self talk, your subconscious believes to be true and will look for the evidence to back that up. And so then it's looking for all the negatives. And so we need to just be aware of that so that we can start to look at how can we shift it. We think thousands and thousands of thoughts every day, but the majority of those thoughts, kind of like the 80-20 rule, right? Most of those thoughts are negative, and most of them are also the same thoughts you thought yesterday and the day before and the day before that. And so we can start to look at what are those self talk statements, right? What are the thoughts? What are the things that you're thinking about yourself, your situation, the world around you? That's important because most of them are going to come down to maybe a few or a handful of core beliefs. They're all going to have a similar theme. So it might be around value, worth, deserve level. I'm not good enough, things like that. It could be around limitations, beating yourself up again for how you are operating. You're comparing yourself. So we do a lot of comparison. We think everybody else has it all together and we don't, or they're so organized and I'm not. Right. And so we're giving a lot of negativity towards ourselves constantly. So I would say to start by just looking to see what those things are. What are you saying to yourself? And then what does that reflect? Because there's going to be underlying beliefs behind that. For example, for me, when I was going through those burnout cycles, what kept coming up for me was something that was actually really ingrained in me from a very young age. Most of these things are, they're all programming from when we're young. And then they just get reinforced over time. And it was that I had to work really, really hard to be successful because you had to physically work hard. Now, I don't physically work with my hands and build things. So for me, what did I translate that to? That I had to wear myself out, that I had to work long hours, that I had to pile everything on, or else that wouldn't be respected when I was successful. So it was very interesting. So we need to figure out what those core themes are for ourselves. And then we can start to shift those, right? We can start to really look at that and say, okay, so if I logically know that that isn't necessarily true, how can I start to shift those statements and tell myself something different? And I love to go with the growth minded types of affirmations to switch that to. Like I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm becoming better, I'm figuring out how to. So if you keep telling yourself, I'm a horrible money manager, I'm never going to have enough, there's never enough, I bank account's always empty. Now I have to pay for all these things for the holidays. It's never going to work. I'm not going to be able to do this. We start telling ourselves these stories. We can shift that to how can I figure out how to have a holiday season where there's more abundance? How can I figure out how to manage my money so that I'm not in that same situation again? right? So you can say, I'm learning how to manage my money better. I'm figuring out how to have a holiday season that isn't necessarily all about things, right? What can we do? And I would also look to the other thing that I think is really helpful in switching this, that I start off with a lot of clients. I do that. And then I also look at what are they putting in, not just with their own words and their own thoughts, but what are they allowing in from the outside? Because everything that's coming in, it's why they call television programming. Everything that's coming into our brains is influencing us. So, where are you spending the most time? The top 10 people, places, channels, or your social media, podcasts. You have a beautiful, positive podcast. People can put a nice big plus sign next to you. But, there's a lot of things that we're letting in that are more negative. And so you do want to put a plus next to anything that makes you feel better about yourself, your situation, and the world around you. A minus if it makes you feel worse, and an equal sign if it doesn't change. And to start to set some boundaries and limit those negatives. That's how you can look at things like family interactions. Well, which topics are the neutral or the positive ones, and which ones are the ones to avoid? And so you can really start to look at the world differently and start to filter differently. Start to intentionally look at what can I do versus what can't I? What am I good at versus what I perceive I'm not? Where can I put positive things in versus filling myself with negatives? That to me is such a great foundation and a great place that anybody could start.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the hard part is realize, or actually, it's really the easy part, but I think it becomes hard because people don't realize that you can actually talk back to your inner critic. Like, you don't have
You
to listen
can.
to that voice in your head. You can actually say, well, yeah, okay, well, where is this coming from? Like, why am I always constantly saying to myself that I'm not good enough? I'm not deserving. I'm not ready. I'm not smart enough. I don't deserve this. I'm not worthy. Like, where is that coming from? And so that's why I feel like taking that chip back through time is really important because the clues are there. And you've heard it somewhere that whatever you've doubled down on is come from something that you've experienced. So where was that experience? And why I love being able to take that chip back through time, because there's going to be that moment in time where you're going to realize, oh, that's where it came from. I remember hearing this being said around a specific topic. I took that as being truth. And now I can see how that's influencing me, not realizing that, oh, it's subconsciously, this has been with me my entire life. And now that I've actually uncovered it, now I can actually say to my inner critic, well, that was then, that maybe that's what I believed then because I didn't really have anything to go off of. I was still developing as a child and growing up and learning. And now I actually have the ability to change my story. I can actually change the narrative. So I love that you talked about that. One of the things that of course, I've said this to you. We've talked about work-life balance before. I feel like there is such a thing as a harmony or a balance to our lives. And so for women, especially, because I know as women, I've just seen it. And I know that women can be really hard on themselves. They can take on everything, like you mentioned, hosting the party and you're doing everything. And even during the party, going around cleaning up and not even actually spending time and enjoying your guests and enjoying the creation of what you created, like this beautiful
Mhm.
gathering of people. So when women get into this place, and they are juggling so much, especially if they're the mom, if they are the one that is hosting this year, the family gatherings for all of the holiday dinners. Or maybe they're traveling and they're having to get their kids and their families all packed up and everything. So what would you say to women who are doing all of these things, especially like you were saying, asking for help is really helping to delegate so that they are preventing burnout, because again, this
Mhm.
usually isn't on their radar, helping them to cultivate a sense of balance in their lives while they are going through these high stress periods of, again, the holidays are upon us and now they're going through all of these high stress activities. And stresses can be good, but there's points where it's not. So what would you say to, I guess let me rephrase that question in a way that just makes sense.
Okay.
When women are going through, especially we know women tend to carry a lot, take on a lot of responsibility
Mhm.
around this time of year when it comes to family, when it comes to planning and all of that. How can you help women? What would you say to help them to cultivate that sense of harmony in their lives while still being able to do all of the things well during these high stress periods around the holidays?
I think it's important to really tune into your values and what's most important to you because everyone's going to be different. So, everyone's version of balance or harmony is going to look different. We all have different pieces and parts in our lives, but it all comes down to making decisions based on your own values. And so, really start to look at, are you doing that? Are you making decisions that are reflecting the things that are most important? Are you spending a lot of time and energy and effort on those things that are lower on the list? So really, when you're presented with something and a decision to make on where you're going to spend your time, look at, is this what's most important to me? Or is this something that I could give that opportunity to someone else? Is it going to reflect that? I think of all the different pieces in our lives as like members of the band or the orchestra for our favorite song. And everyone has a different favorite song. Everyone is going to have their jam or whatever that is. And there's going to be different instruments and different players that all contribute to that. So each part of your life is like a piece of that. You might have a guitar, a piano, a cello. I mean, we all have different pieces, but sometimes there's going to be a solo. Sometimes there's a vocal solo and you need to take care of yourself, or sometimes there's the drums and you're taking care of the kids, or whatever it is, wherever your focus is. But to me, that harmony is that sometimes there's that solo, and often everything is working together. But the most important thing is it's in a way that's most pleasing to you because it's your favorite song, not anyone else's. And so, don't compare and look sideways. Really think about, is this reflecting what's important to me? And have that be your guide.
Yeah, I love that. And I also too know that there can be I don't know if you would say trying to control everything. So that means that only I can do this or only I can delegate this. And it's when you allow other people to come in, especially during this time of year, to contribute. Even if it's messy, even if it's just, if it's not what you would have thought, it's you're allowing each other to grow together, creating
Yeah.
those memories together. And so you're not exhausted having done everything, or you're not that person who's, as I was mentioning before, going around cleaning up after everyone or bringing more food out as everyone is around talking and enjoying life and having laughs and enjoying the good food, but you're not enjoying the time, you know? So I really feel like it's just being able to step back a little bit, like you were saying, and making sure that it makes you feel good. And even like thinking about what I just said, does it feel good to be the one walking around while everyone else is enjoying themselves and all you're doing is cleaning up and you're not really actually engaged? Does it feel good to do that? Because I bet you the answer that's going to come
Mhm.
across everyone's lips is no, it doesn't feel good. So it's really taking that moment and just allowing yourself to say, you know what, I don't have to do this right now. I don't have to clean up right now. And actually, I have a whole team of people that are here with me right now that at the end of it all, we can do it together, which makes it another bonding experience because you can talk
Mhm.
about like what happened, how the party went, or how the gathering was, and
Mhm.
what your favorite part of it was. I just feel like you can make every piece of the experience a moment to bond. And yeah, so that's my take on that. So, final thoughts. As we wrap up, what final words of wisdom would you like to share with our listeners who are looking to heal, grow, and step into their most empowered selves as they navigate the holiday season and beyond?
I would say don't feel like you have to do it all by yourself and put everything on your shoulders. Release those pressures and expectations and get the support that you deserve because you do deserve it. And I think that's really, really important to realize as women, especially because traditionally people have tried to put everything on themselves and just do it all and be super women. And it's important for us to talk about that it's okay not to, right? It's okay to share those things with each other and not to think that everybody else has it all together except for you. Whatever is going on for you, it's valid, it's valued, and we need to value ourselves enough to reach out for that support. So I hope that people will do that, especially over the holiday season, because it can be a challenging time.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for spending time with me today and sharing your wisdom on healing, growth, and creating harmony in our lives. I really do admire your approach and how you empower your clients to embrace self-care, to set boundaries, navigating their challenges with clarity and confidence. So, Jodie, thank you so much for being here with me today and for offering such valuable information and insights for our audience.
Thank you so much, Leslie. I appreciate it. And if anybody would like to reach out and has any questions for me, they can find me at psychedupsuccess.com or on social media as myself or at psychedupsuccess. So thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday season.
Yeah, thank you so much. And yes, again, to our listeners, if you would like to connect with Jodie directly and learn more about her work at Psyched Up Success and any of the other things that she's mentioned today, you actually can find all of her contact information in the show notes. So you don't have to go very far. You don't have to go searching. It's right there at your fingertips. Remember, every step you take toward creating balance and prioritizing your well-being is a step toward a more empowered and fulfilled life. During this busy season, give yourself permission to pause, reflect, and focus on what really matters to you. You have the power to make choices that not only support your goals and happiness today, but also lay the foundation for a brighter and more aligned future. So embrace each moment with gratitude, protect your energy with intention, and move forward with courage and purpose. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep designing your extraordinary life one day at a time. Thank you for joining me on Her Extraordinary Life by Design. I hope you've been inspired and empowered by the incredible stories shared on this show. If you enjoyed this episode and the conversations we've had, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback and support mean the world to me, and it will help others discover the podcast and join our empowering community. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Together, we can continue to learn from these amazing women, uncover their extraordinary journeys, and be motivated to create our own lives by design. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered and keep shaping your extraordinary life one day at a time.
Have you ever wondered what actually happens in Congress every day? Stay informed on Capitol Hill's daily happenings with a concise, factual summary of the Senate and House of Representatives' activities from the previous session, free from bias, on the Congressional Record Daily Digest podcast. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and discover the process from the heart of U.S. politics. The Congressional Record Daily Digest, an Electricast production.
Electricast. Hey guys, it's Miriam Love here, and I want to share something very special with you. Check out my new release, All In, the Spanish remixes, out now on Electricast Records. And always remember, be love, share love, all love.
Available now wherever you listen to music.